Hello and welcome back to Blackphoenix Entertainment and another IT story. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm doing, this is actually a series and I have a playlist with all my other IT stories in it, and I'm going along my career in IT from basically start until present. So I've got some interesting stories and things that have happened to me along the way, so I figured, why not? Why not make a series of fun stories, not only to kind of reminisce, but also to give everyone out there an idea of what it's like and how it's like working in IT. Alright, so where are we in the story? Basically, I was working a contract for a major bank. That contract was up. I bounced to another one in between. You know, this company promised me a full-time job when they had something available. Go back to that video because that did not work out well. But luckily, this MSP, and I say MSP, which is a managed service provider, I'll get into that in a minute, it did have a full-time position for me, and they called me back. So that's where we are. Basically, I am now starting for that MSP. For those of you who are not familiar with the term MSP, it's a managed service provider. Basically, if you don't have an internal IT department or anyone within IT that has the skill set that you need, you would call an outside vendor, an outside contractor vendor, which is considered a managed service provider. They either provide all of your IT or only certain functions of it, and that's the company that I worked for. Now, I call it a contract company because I was hired full-time, but not as an employee, still under contract. So yes, I worked, full-time gig, 5, 6, 7 days a week, all the hours that were there. So yeah, full-time hours, but not technically for them, but that is what it is. Now, with this deal, obviously I get paid hourly, and I would get mileage and overtime and all that for on-call. So it ends up working out, and it's not a bad gig to start. So yes, they called me back and they said, all right, we've got a thing for you. Now, if you, again, part of this, if you guys following along with the stories, you can kind of get my timeline of things. This happened late summer into the fall. So they called me and said, hey, we have a mini project that's kind of a full-time gig for seasonal that'll get you in the door. So I'm like, all right, cool. Basically, because the holiday season was coming up, they needed someone to do retail almost like after hours. So it was kind of like a second into third shift type job. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll take that because like I said, it's my way in, and I don't mind it. So that ended up working. So what does that mean? All these retail stores, they have printers, they have all the registers, really, they're all computers and all of that. So, and certain other retailers have price scanners. Those price scanners where you want to scan, how much this has cost. We worked on those too. So those pretty much were my functions for that position. And that's pretty much what I did through, I think it was, I want to call it like 3 months, like all the way through the holiday season, past Christmas into New Year's type deal. So I would just, they trained me. Obviously I went through all the training and all of that, and some ride-alongs and things, and then threw me into that. I have, now that I say ride-along, I have a funny story about a ride-along, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, I have a whole bunch of side stories, so this video is just going to kind of broad scope what I was doing. Then after this video, I am going to get into some side stories, because now that my career is progressing and I have a full-time gig and all that, and I'm spending more time at a job rather than just bouncing from contract to contract, yeah, I got some stories. So I will definitely get onto that. And if you're interested in hearing those stories, I would go down and subscribe and hit the bell. That way you get notified when these videos come out, so you can follow along. Yeah, so the gig was pretty easy, honestly. And part of it was because it was the holiday season and they didn't have enough staff to cover that second, late shift. So, there were some guys on call, and it was an on-call rotation, but again, holiday season, a ton of calls come in. One guy can't cover the whole area. And there were separate regions for New England, basically. We covered all of New England, and there were little teams of us, I think like teams of like 4 or 5, depending on how big the region was, that would cover calls within that region. So I covered the southeastern Mass into Rhode Island type region. There were times where I went a little bit further north, depending on coverage and if I was available or not. So, you know, we have a ticketing system, calls come in, be like, all right, I'll, you know, this one's mine, let me take it and see where I am, and all of that. The easiest ones are the price scanners. You basically spend 2 minutes troubleshooting it. You walk up to it and be like, oh, yep, not working. Reboot it, reset it, oh, still not working, replace it, boom, done. So I would carry around a bunch of them with me, like in my car, you know, in a trunk, in boxes, and be like, all right, what model is it? All right, it's this one, boom, replace it, set it up, boom, done. That's it, that was the call. And then, yeah, registers, which, again, depending on the retailer and the type of register they used, could have been a pain in the ass, but for the most part, I think the hardest one that I did was for a Target, and I literally had the entire thing apart. And like, they wanted me to replace the board in it, basically, like the motherboard and all that. I'm like, why can't we just replace the whole thing? Like, the replacement unit would have taken me less than an hour, set it up, boom, done. But instead of that, you guys wanted me to replace the entire board. Hey, you know, again, not my call. I'm getting paid by the hour, so I don't care. One annoying fact about this that flows into the full-time position after the seasonal as well is finding someone to talk to when you get there. A couple of the retailers were really bad. One of them was absolutely atrocious. And because basically you got to sign off. Certain retailers want to be like, hey, who did you talk to when you got to the store? Sign off, you did your thing. That's it, you know, give them a name. Man, this one particular retailer was just bad, and I got to the point where I wrote down the manager's names at certain locations, you know, and I was like, all right, I talked to this guy, because they were impossible. Like, there was literally times I would sit there for 20 minutes waiting for someone to come and talk to me and be like, all right, you know, what's going on? What do you need me to do? I just need to, you know, say that I talked to you and all of that. Once I got more experience and figured out, you know, I'm not going to waste 20 minutes of my time when it's really only a 10-minute fix, 5 or 10 minute fix, if that. You know, I did that, and things flowed a lot better. And quite honestly, nobody noticed. Nobody noticed at all. And once you got familiar with the stores, you're like, oh, all right, this thing is here, this location is here, you know, this scanner's here. Man, it just made things so much easier. So yeah, as you can imagine, it was long hours. I'd get up late, you'd get emergency calls at like 10 o'clock, and the store closes at 11, and you're like, yeah, I'm like 45 minutes away, which gives me 15 minutes to fix whatever the hell you guys are saying that you gotta fix. So it is what it is. I'm not gonna complain though, because again, you get paid mileage, you get paid hourly, there was overtime, so there were pretty much every week worked over 40 hours a week for that seasonal gig. So there you go. I'm not going to go too far into that because, like I said, I've got side stories involved in that, but I just wanted to get the ball rolling, being like, this is where I am in my story. So working for this MSP, doing this seasonal side gig, I've got some side stories of some training, again, to ride-alongs, and some couple things that happened to me, you know, during this 3 months where I was doing the seasonal second shift gig. Then that flows into me working, you know, the first shift full-time gig for them. So I'll get into all of that, but I don't want to make these videos super long because, again, this is going to be an ongoing series, and you guys should be hitting that subscribe and the bell so you guys can get notified when I release these videos. While you're down there, leave me a comment, let me know that this is entertaining for you guys, and check down in my description. I've got some cool stuff from my people that are supporting me. Got some discount codes to save you guys some money. Go and check that out. So, all of that being said, it is now the end of the vlog, and I must bid you adieu. So without further ado, goodbye and good